Hey, good morning. We're going to take some notes today on the concept of rhetoric, which we were introduced to last week by looking at some commercials and then also the COVID-19 commercial. But now we're going to take notes so that you have it to refer back to as we keep going through this unit. So you will need to take notes for today's assignment. You can either print out the Word document that's attached on the OneNote page. You can type directly into OneNote. You can use your stylus, but I am going to be checking to see that you filled in the notes. So pause for a minute so that you can get your notes set up. And the nice thing as you go through this video is you can pause at any time when you need to get caught up. You can go back if you need to. So unlike in class where you might say like, can you go back to the last slide? And I say, no, we have to keep going. You can stop and go at whatever pace you need to. All right, the word rhetoric is a word that means the skills of persuasive speaking and writing. It's a Greek word, and it comes to us from the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who lived 384 to 322 BCE. So he was like 300 to 400 years before the birth of Christ. And Aristotle is one of the philosophers that really gave us the foundation for Western philosophy. One of the ideas that he developed is rhetoric and the ways that people can persuade other people to believe in their point of view. And he described 3 ways to persuade somebody, and those ways are ethos, pathos, and logos. And he formed the concept of ethos, pathos, and logos into a triangle with ethos at the top, pathos on one side, and logos on the other side. And we're going to be talking a lot about this concept of the rhetorical triangle as we go through our unit for the next couple of weeks. One way that we can think about ethos is as an appeal to ethics. And remember, we talked about ethics when we read Antigone and we looked at the lifeboat problem, like should you push people off the lifeboat to save other people? We looked at the trolley problem. So ethics uses the speaker's character, their credibility, and their authority to help convince the audience. The audience has to trust the speaker in order for them to be persuaded. It's not enough to say, I believe them. You have to trust them. So one way to think about it is like on Instagram or Twitter, you get that verified check mark if you're, I guess, a big enough celebrity and you can prove that it's actually you. In that case, if you follow somebody on Instagram or Twitter and they have that verified check mark and you're like, oh, I really want to buy whatever product they're selling on Instagram, and you see that verified, that might make you trust them more. Next is pathos. Pathos is an appeal to emotion. Pathos is whenever the audience feels strong emotions that could include pity, fear, or sympathy. And pathos is effective because humans are emotional creatures. We respond to emotion. If we see somebody else crying, we feel sad for them. If we see somebody else laughing, we want to know what they're laughing at so we can laugh along. If we see something bad happening to somebody, we get angry about it, at that injustice, and we want to try to fix it. And then finally, logos. Logos is an appeal to logic. Logos is when the speaker supports their claims with evidence and reasoning. And we practice using logos all the time in English because most of the writing that you're doing is always coming up with your claim and then finding evidence to support it and then using your reasoning to explain how the evidence supports the claim. And logos is really effective as a rhetorical technique because it's hard to argue with strong evidence and solid reasoning. If you have numbers, facts, statistics, data to back up what you're saying, it's hard for people to argue with that. Okay, so let's look at how we would apply those 3 concepts of the rhetorical triangle to the COVID-19 commercial. Most of you said in your Ed Puzzle on Friday that the COVID-19 commercial seems to use pathos more than anything else, which I agree is true, especially in the way that they use the music and showing the pictures of families. They also use a lot of ethos, though, in emphasizing how long they've been around and how to trust them. So let's start with ethos. Ethos, pathos, logos. Oh, we're going to start with pathos. Okay. So some of the things that I saw in the commercial that are ways that the commercial producers are using pathos are the music that begins really sad and serious. Remember, the word they used was somber, and then it ends really happy and hopeful. They showed images of families, homes, and healthcare workers to remind people of their own families and their own homes to feel safe and comforted. For ethos, they emphasized how long the companies have existed. They said things like, since 1922, or for 40 years, we've been. And then finally, logos, when they're telling people to stay home in order to stay safe, they're using logic to help prevent the spread of the virus. So that's the way that they're using logos to appeal to people. Another way to think about the rhetorical triangle is in terms of the speaker, and we could see the speaker connected to ethos because ethos is when the speaker establishes their credibility or authority. The audience, and we can see audience connected to to pathos because the audience is the ones that feels the strong emotions. and then the purpose. And we can see purpose connected to logos because that's the ways that they're using logic and evidence and reasoning to support their claim. And then we would see the message, what they're actually saying, what they want to convince you of in the middle. All right, here's an example that I wrote. As I read through this example, I want you to see if you can pick out where I'm using ethos, pathos, and logos. As a teacher with a master's degree in education from Stanford University and 10 years of experience, I can tell you that the students who get at least 8 hours of sleep at night have been the most successful students in my classes. But unfortunately, only 15% of teens get 8.5 hours of sleep a night, according to the National Sleep Foundation. Are you part of that 15%? You can probably remember a time when you didn't get enough sleep and you had to sit through first period, trying to keep your eyes open and propping your head up with your hand on your chin. It's miserable, isn't it? Do you really want to feel that way? Therefore, I urge you to practice good sleep habits and prioritize getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. All right, take a minute and see, can you see where I'm using ethos or appealing based on my authority or experience, making you trust me? Where am I using pathos, making you feel a particular emotion? And then where am I using logos or facts and evidence to support my claim? So if you said that I'm using ethos at the beginning, you would be correct. When I say as a teacher with a master's degree in education from Stanford University and 10 years of experience, in that case, I'm establishing myself, the speaker, as a credible person that you can trust when I tell you something. For logos, if you said only 15% of teens get 8.5 hours of sleep a night according to the National Sleep Foundation, you would be correct. That's where I'm using facts and statistics. And then finally, for pathos, all of this. Are you part of that 15%? You can probably remember a time when you didn't get enough sleep. You had to sit through first period trying to keep your eyes open and propping your head up with your hand on your chin. It's miserable, isn't it? Do you really want to feel that way? I'm making you feel that miserable it's almost like you're sick. You just feel like you can't keep your eyes open, and helping the audience to feel that way. So one thing I want to check real quick, did I get my colors mixed up here? Yes. Okay, so I'm trying to use green for pathos and blue for logos. So I want to switch these colors. Oh, I don't want to use the laser pointer. I want to switch the colors. So switch these. If you wrote this down, if you were using highlighters or anything, the colors should be switched. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, and then, so if my message is, I urge you to practice good sleep habits, prioritize getting 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Ethos, the way that I establish myself is, okay, we're starting with pathos. All right, pathos is when I say things like, it's miserable, isn't it? Do you really want to feel that way? Logos is when I give you facts and statistics, like only 15% of teens get 8.5 hours of sleep a night, according to the National Sleep Foundation. And ethos, again, is when I'm setting myself up as somebody who's trustworthy, as a teacher with a master's degree in education from Stanford University and 10 years of experience. All right, it's your turn. Here's what I want you to do to practice. On the page in OneNote, there's a yellow box for you to fill this in. I want you to write an email to one of your teachers, an imaginary email, okay? Please do not actually send this to a teacher, asking them to raise your grade by at least 10%. The reason I picked 10% is I want you to have to say something where you have to be super persuasive, because it's pretty unlikely if you had a C, your teacher would be like, sure, I'll bump you up to a B. So you had to be super persuasive here. It could be a class where you really could use that grade bump, or it can be imaginary. Remember, this is just for practice. You're not actually sending this. Use at least one example each of ethos, pathos, and logos to be persuaded. And then after you finish writing your email, I want you to highlight each example using the color coding to show me where you think you used it. So you're going to highlight ethos in red, pathos in green, and logos in blue. Again, please don't actually send the email. This is practice to use these rhetorical strategies, not to try to get Mr. Harris to give you an A in physics. All right, I will be checking to see that you filled in your notes and also that you did this practice. And then later this week, you're going to take some time to look at commercials and to practice identifying the ethos, pathos, and logos in the commercials, and then setting up how they use the rhetorical triangle.